Hello everyone, welcome to week 2. This week we're going to be making our own pinhole camera. So if you read what I posted on the 10 Legs website, you'll be led to another website that tells you how to make a Matchbox pinhole camera. Very common kind of camera, very fun, very easy to use, very easy to make again in case it wears out or breaks. I wanted to show you a few things, not the whole thing through and through, but a few things that I've changed about the design of the website. One is the shutter. So on mine, I don't have the shutter the way they explained to build it. So it doesn't slide out on the top. That's fine, but moving parts out of cardboard, they get loose, they get worn out. You could have more potential for light leaks in that case. So what I do is make a really simple flap out of electrical tape. So you just take a piece of electrical tape, 1.5 inches long, if that. Use your X-Acto or utility knife. Cut it. Fold one end over so you have a tab to grab onto. It could be relatively small. Just something that won't stick all the way. And then over your pinhole, which I'm sure you can't see there because it's so tiny. Again, make that really, really small. You just put it right over there. All right? And that covers your pinhole until you're ready to use it. I'll talk about use in a second. But the other thing is, there is no clicker. I don't do the clicker thing on this camera. I just don't feel like it's that necessary. I think it's a little cumbersome actually. So in your fresh roll of film, pull out the leader and a little bit extra. I take a pair of scissors and cut a flat edge. And then instead of sending this through the camera onto the other roll, taping it together and then taping it all, I use an empty film canister. It's actually one that I ruined. I just had a roll of film laying around and I pulled it all out and left a good long strip at the end. I leave that connected to the camera the whole time and then this end sticking out and I tape those two together and reel it into the camera. I feel like it uses a little less film of the fresh roll that you put in, and it's easier to load in the field because you only have one thing to tape up. So you put those two bits together and then just take your standard old Scotch tape . Sorry if you heard that, that's my daughter. Tape those two things together on both sides. Doesn't have to be perfect, just has to hold them together. A lot of things about pinhole photography especially are imperfect. And so if you're learning to do DIY stuff, you know, lose the illusions of perfection and just have fun and do some cool images. So once those two things are taped together, I just wind it up. And I should mention too, there's no winder. I don't do a winder on this camera. It's a little cumbersome until you get the strip of tape wound in, but then it's really easy to use the film canister, the empty piece, and wind it up with that. There we go. That's easy. So once you get it wound in, you still need to tape this side up, and you'll see my Matchbox camera is really old. I've been using it for a number of years, and I could probably stand to rebuild it, just haven't gotten around to it. But anyway, tape that up on all sides. So be liberal again with your electrical tape. You want to seal out any light leaks that are possible here. Seal them all up. When in doubt, if you think it could leak light, add some more tape. Tape is cheap. The time that you spent to make all your pictures is not. The toughest part is at the top and bottom, so up here on the film and down here, so I add a little bit of tape there. And you want to tape it so that it's kind of sturdy enough to hold up to a lot of use. Because these cameras are great, you can throw them in your pockets, you can carry them around, you can kind of beat them up and rebuild them quite easily. Alright, so there's that. So this camera is functionally ready to use right now. All you need to do is reel it in a couple more times into your empty container of film. so you have a fresh frame, and then it's ready to go. Alright, a couple of notes on use. First is, always remember which is your old crappy roll of film and which is your fresh. You always want to wind it into the old one until it's all done, and you rewind the whole thing into the one that you're shooting. I've definitely been in a situation where I start using it and I start essentially rewinding the film that I've already shot and exposing it again. So be mindful of that. Make it a different color, add an X, whatever, to signify and remind yourself, especially if these two are the same. These two are different kinds of film, so it's a lot less likely, but it's still possible. The other thing is, when you're out in the field, you can't really attach this to a tripod the way it's built. You could modify it, certainly, but this doesn't really have that. So when you're out, you want to put it on a table, put it on a fence post, put it on a sign, anything that can hold it steady for at least a few seconds. And when you're ready to expose, simply lift up that flap, remove it, and put it back on to stop the exposure, and then rewind it. And a couple notes about exposure. For bright sunlight, depending on the size of your pinhole, the size of the pinhole determines a lot. It can vary from a few seconds to a few more, and it takes a little trial and error with every camera and every pinhole. I would say to start, if it's a bright sunny day, a camera this small with the pinhole you're going to make, it should be a couple of seconds, maybe 2 seconds. On an overcast day, maybe up to 5 seconds. If it's evening or something, the exposure time could get a lot longer, into the minutes. And at night, you can do things at night, but it's several minutes if you get any usable result at all. So keep that in mind. Hold it steady, a couple of seconds if it's bright, a few more if it's dim. Any little bit of movement can make the image very, very blurry, so be mindful of that. Anyway, I hope you enjoy using this camera. I think it's a lot of fun, it's quick, it's easy. Post your images. We're going to do the figure, architecture, and nature. So focus on those themes, shoot a couple rolls of film, post what you think are the best from each theme, and we'll all do some comments on them and review them, and I can't wait to see them. Alright, happy shooting.